Hey, Bob here again. Going to go part two on the fitting the top and building in the action and why and what the final numbers are. I just made a video this morning previous to this one. Today is Thursday, July 17th, 2025. And one of the reasons I'm making this video is this will probably be the last guitar I ever do this to. I mean, who knows what the future is going to bring, but at age 70, almost 71, I decided it was a good time to stop making guitars, but you never know. I might make another one after these. But anyway, so a long time ago, Tim Olson from the Guild of American Luthiers in Tacoma, Washington, wanted me to do some wanted me to do some workshop, seminar, tutorial type things at different conventions that they've had in the past. And I always told him, I said, listen, Tim, I want to wait for as long as I can and get some accumulated knowledge before I go talking to anybody at conventions, because there will be people in there that don't know as much as I know. There will also be people in there that know more than I know. So, of course, I never wanted to come across as some guy that didn't know what he was talking about. And anyway, so now that I'm 71 and I'm pretty much done, I wanted to share what I do, and that's why I'm making these little videos. I'm not trying to get lots of likes. I'm not trying to get applause. I'm just wanting to share the things that I've learned that most videos and books don't tell you. And keep in mind also that this is just my way of doing it. It's not the only way. We're all a little different, and this is what I do. Okay, so that's my disclaimer. Okay, so here is probably my last guitar, and it's Brazilian rosewood, mahogany neck. It's going to have a spruce top, and if you've watched any of my previous videos, you probably have seen the top and some of the other things that I've done. In any event, I've got, here we are, here's the guitar. The back curved liners, the reverse curved liners are in, and the back is fitted perfectly to this guitar, okay? And so I'm going to take it from there. The depth of the sound box, I vary it sometimes. On this particular guitar and the other one, my final depth of the sound box will go from 3 3/4 inches at the 12th fret to 4 inches at the till block down here, plus or minus a millimeter, okay? So with that said, and that's a sound consideration. That's not an arbitrary, number. Those aren't arbitrary numbers. I have a certain sound in mind that I'm shooting for, and in order to get that sound, I've made this depth of a sound box. There's no accidents. There's a plan in the beginning. Okay, so now let's talk about my zero line. It's very, very important for me. Maybe not for you, but for the way I do it, my zero line is really important. And as you can see, the guitar is in the form, the shell is in the form, The tail block is glued in. Of course, the back liners are in. The sides are attached in the Spanish way. And here's the neck. And if you see this straight edge here, the reason I call this, the bottom of this straight edge is my 0 line. And that line will exist from the nut to the 12th fret to the, not the tail block, because right now the tail block is high, but the sides are the proper height to be on the 0 line. That's where I start. Everything has to be perfect. As I move this ruler, it touches here, it touches the 12th fret, and it touches, if it were long enough, it would touch the nut. It's just about 2 inches short. But you get the idea. So we're on a perfectly straight line here. This point, and the top of the sides, and the sides of the sides, everything is on. If I switch this over here, it should all line up perfectly. The waist should line up, the upper bout, everything lines up. It's on 0. And if you can grasp that concept, okay? Now, the reason I'm showing you, I'm going to take this away for the moment. Now these sides right now are coming into the neck, and these sides are on the 0 line. My top is, this little shelf here that I've routed is 3.5 millimeters deep. And that happens to be the exact thickness of my top, my spruce top right here, okay? So my spruce top is going to fit right down in there. And once it does, this is just an example, it's a shim. But once that top fits in there, it's going, the top of the top will be on that 0 line, okay? Now, stay with me for a minute. Let's say that I planed each side from this point on. Keep in mind, they're all lined up. They're all on the 0 line. Let's say that I planed this line from 0 right here and gradually took this side down at an angle so that it comes into the neck minus 3.5 millimeters. So now we've got an angle from 0 down to 3.5, right? The angle would, I'm going to exaggerate, but the top would be going like this, from 0 to 3.5 into the shelf, okay? What would that mean? Well, if whatever thickness my top is at this end, it will be higher than the sides. So in the case of this particular top, which happens to be 3.2 millimeters thick down at the bottom edge of it, if I did not lower the sides at this end, that top would be up 3.2 here and 0 here, okay? And if that top were 4 inches thick, imagine, let's exaggerate, then it would be 4 inches up here, and of course I'd have to cut this off altogether to make it go to 0 here. You can grasp that very rudimentary concept. So, let's go back to my guitar top. My top in the other room is 3.5 thick up here and 3.2 millimeters thick down here, okay? I don't want the top going up 3.2 millimeters. That's way too much angle. I want the top to go up between 1 and 1.5 millimeters, okay? Now let's talk about why. In the old days, the Ramirez family, and I'm sure others, used to put an excessive amount of angle to the neck. They would build the guitar upside down on a workboard, a Solera, and the neck would angle, when it was upside down, the neck would actually angle down in relationship to the rest of the guitar, okay? Because when the Spanish built their guitars, they built them upside down on that workboard. So this part would be facing down. And they would actually tilt the neck. They would tilt the neck up, but keep in mind it's flipped over, so they would tilt the neck down on the workboard. Okay, so that's way too much angle. If you build a guitar like that with 2 or more millimeters of neck lift, you're going to have some real problems at the bridge. You are going to have a very, very low bridge saddle, and you might even have to bring the wood on the bridge down to accommodate even a lower saddle, because the bridge, some of the wood where the saddle goes into the bridge, that wood is going to be too high. So now, in my opinion, it's better to build a guitar on the 0 line than to put too much neck angle. So what would that mean? That would mean that I haven't planed these yet to the final dimensions. That's what we're going to do here. This is going to be a few parts because the video is going to get too long if I don't break it up. So anyway, let's say you took the sides down 3.5 millimeters here and 3.2 millimeters here. If I made a gradual taper from minus 3.2 here to minus 3.5 here from the 0 line, that way my top would fit right in there and everything would still be on the 0 line, right? It'd be 0 here, 0 here, and because I went down 3.2 there, you're going to have a straight line all the way across. It's better to build a guitar like that than it is to put too much neck angle in. Now, when I build a guitar, my rise at this end above the 0 line will be between 1 and 1.5 millimeters. Now, on the previous video that I just made this morning, like an hour ago, and that I just posted, it's already on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, I talked about putting in 1.5 or subtracting 1.5 down at the tail block end because I had a 3 millimeter top, and if I went down 1.5, being 3 millimeters, then the tail end would stick up 1.5. Can you get that simple concept? So now this would be 1.5 millimeters above the 0 line at this end. When you put a straight edge on that top, once it's in place, you have a very, very small gap here, okay? It's not much, it really isn't much at all. But I like to err on the side of less neck angle. Now, that other guitar that I showed you in the last video, that was a different guitar than this one. I will never go past 1.5 millimeters top angle. Instead of raising this end, I raise this end. It's the same thing. Raise one end to the other, it doesn't really matter. But it's better for the whole thing to be flat than it is to have this end too high or this end too high. Now, the way I build with the 1 to 1.5 rise on the top at this end, that will give me, I always start with a 7 millimeter thick soundboard. Fretboard. I make it 7 millimeters thick. That gives me room to make adjustments to my fingerboard in relationship to the bridge once the guitar is put together. Okay, so I don't use a 6 millimeter fretboard like a lot of people. I use a 7 millimeter, and then I do what I have to do on the fingerboard to get my very final action. And what action do I shoot for? This is probably the most important part. So I shoot for an action, and my guitars are very, very consistent in action. I shoot for an action of, at the 12th fret, bass string 3.5, first string 1.7, 3.5 and 2.7, could be 2.8, but right in that area. So 3.5 here, 2.7. However, I like to achieve those numbers with a final saddle height from the top of the guitar to the bottom of the strings. I like that number to be 12, okay? And a lot of you are going to say, oh, that's too high. Well, that may be true, but once I do my final stuff, having a saddle height of around 12, which is in fact high, that will allow me to lower my action here if somebody wants it down lower to 3, let's say 3 and 2.5, or even if they wanted me to go down flamenco height. As long as I've got some saddle here, I can go down. And that's why I shoot for 12. And the late great Robert Ruck also shot for 12. Now the ideal height of the saddle is really 10 millimeters, okay? That's your ideal final height. But I would rather mine be a little higher so that I can make adjustments in the down way. In 32 years that I made guitars, I only had one person ask me to raise the action, okay? Everybody wants the action lower, except for like less than 1%, I would guess 1%. Once again, the reason that I'm explaining this is because you don't adjust the action after the guitar is made. You build the action into the guitar while it's being made, okay? Or at least you try to, okay? And that's the way I do it. So what I'm fixing to do on this guitar is I'm going to remove my legs on this form. I'm going to take the guitar out of the form. I'm going to take my little cardboard template right here, and I'm going to put a dot. Now, let me use this side where you can see. I'm going to put a dot at minus 3.5 here. I'll put a couple of dots, maybe a couple of inches away from each other. And then at the tail end, whatever number I decide I want, however high I want the bottom of the guitar to rise, I will adjust my number of the side here, how much I have to remove from the side. Okay, so in this case, got my little pad of paper. It's very simple math. My top is 3.2 millimeters thick. I want the guitar to be 1 to 1.5, but we're going to just say 1.5 because a half a millimeter is quite a little amount. We're going to say 1.5. So I want the top of the top down here to be 1.5 above my zero line. So it's a 3.2 top down here. In order for me to meet my numbers, I need to subtract 1.5 from 3.2. That gives me 1.7. I need to go down 1.7 here, okay? However, this particular spruce top is a heavy top, and I want to thin it down a little bit once I glue it on. I want to thin it down maybe as much as a 1/2 millimeter. And I'll do that later on, but keep knowing that I'm going to do that because I think the top is a little bit stiff for it's a thick top, but because the wood is so dense and heavy, I'm going to thin it down a little bit here. So now instead of being 3.2 millimeters thick, it's probably going to end up at around 3.1 or even a little bit less. So I have to take that into consideration because I already know that I'm going to sand this top down further. The other guitar, I'm not going to do that to. I like where it is right now. And that's 3 millimeters. The other top is 3 millimeters at this end. So if it's going to go up 1.5, then it's going to go down 1.5. Because 1.5 and 1.5 equals 3 millimeters. Knowing I'm going to thin this spruce top down a little more once it's glued in position, I have to take that into consideration. So I am not going to go down 1.7 here. I'm going to go down 1.5 or 1.6. I'm going to draw a couple of dots there about 2 inches from each other. And I'm going to connect those dots with this tapered, no, excuse me, this is not tapered. This is the same. These two edges are parallel. I'm going to just clamp this on the side and trace a line connecting those two dots. Well, how do you do that when the side is bent? How do you get a proper taper? Well, you just do it with your eye. And in my case, my left eye, because this one's seeing all fuzzy right now. I have to get it fixed. I'm going to see the super duper Dr. Gulani in Jacksonville. I'm going to see him this Monday, and it's going to cost me a lot of money because he doesn't take insurance. I'm hoping he can get this eye fixed with some laser surgery. But anyway, I got one good eye here and it works great. I need to connect those two dots, and then I need to plane the side down at an angle, and then I'll start to do the final fitting of the top. Okay? So, this is where we are. And once again, I'm sharing this info because I might never do this again. So I'm just going to flip the guitar over. You don't really have to watch from this point on unless you want to. I'm going to take off my legs. These are the longer legs. And I'm not going to do the whole thing here. I'm going to break this up into a few parts. These legs, like I've showed you before, go on either side. I have two lengths. These are like 9 inches and the others are 6 inches. Sometimes I need the longer ones to clear these clamps. So, 4 legs. I'll put them off to the side for the moment. Actually, I have the box right here. Okay. And we're just going to take this out of the form. Now we're going to be way down here. Let me double check the camera. I think I'll make a slight adjustment here. Okay, now we're here. We're just going to unscrew these. Release the tension, of course, on the waste block. And just loosen these. And remove the guitar from the shell. I do have a, I don't know, I think this is out of camera. Just going to hang this guitar up for a second. Okay, so this is all done with the guitar out of the form. Just going to set this aside for a moment. Okay, clean off the workbench a bit here. And here's the guitar. Okay, so what we need to do is simply measure and put a mark 3.5 down here and 1.5 here. Now, for the sake of time, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to lightly show you what I do here. We're just going to make believe that I can eyeball these numbers. And honestly, by now, I certainly can. I've done it enough times, but just going to sort of eyeball this to save time. And essentially, I'm going to clamp this paper template from minus 1.5 here. It's going to go all the way down to minus 3.5 here. And I'm not going to bore you with the details because I will spend time doing this precisely. But for the moment, just to give you an idea, this is what I do. And I'm just throwing this together very quickly. It's always fun to pull out the colorful, cheap little clamps from Harbor Freight. And basically, once I get this all clamped in place, there you go, just to expedite the process. Okay, so now I've got, keep in mind, this is all in the zero end. These sides are all lined up with the top of the neck. Now I'm going to lower it. I'm going to take it down 1.5 here, maybe 1.6, but I always leave a little room for sanding and so on. So we'll probably go to 1.5 here, and that line will, this is a little screwed up. Let me just fix this a bit. There we go. And I will take a nice sharp pink or yellow colored pencil. I have a bunch of these. They're artist pencils. And I will draw a line here. I'll trace the pattern, okay, all the way down. 3.5 to minus 3.5 to minus 1.5 at this end. I'll do it to both sides. Then I'm going to put the guitar back. Once I have the line, I'll line this up, put it back in the form, and all these pieces of tape here will show me when I'm back in the form exactly where I took it out. And I'll get everything lined up, make sure I got the zero line back. I get everything back to zero and everything's lined up. Then I plane and down to my line. And I leave the line. I like to be a little bit above it. And after I get that all done, I will take the top, plop it in here. I'll fit it up here. Then once it's fit up here, I'll put it in place, put a couple of weights on it. I'll trim the ends of the braces so they fit just inside here. And once, oh, and I also have to plane the end of the tail block, the top of the tail block, because that'll get planed down and then chamfer it a little bit, sort of like this end here, if you can see. Okay. I will plane the sides and fit the top, and then I will glue in the top kerfing. Okay? That's how I do my action. And I will end up with numbers in the end, 3.5 to about 2.7, 2.8, whatever I want it on the treble side. I'll end up with a saddle that's 12 millimeters. The strings will end up being 12 millimeters off of the soundboard with plenty of room on the saddle to go down should I need to. And I do need to. Sometimes I'm off a little bit. You can always go up, but you can not always go down with the saddle. And I actually like to get the action as low as I can here, unless it's a really strong player. Strong players like higher action, but the rest of us, the 99%, the rest of us, we don't like a high action here. We like a low action. I like even going down to 3.2, to 2.5. I like it as low as I can get it here for my own personal taste. But once I get those numbers, I still like this number to be not less than 10 millimeters high from the top of the guitar to the bottom of the strings, okay? I don't want that number less than 10 for a classical. Now, if I'm doing a flamenco, that number is pretty good at 8, you know? I like 8, but you can go to 7. You end up with the very low strings on the top, and I only do that if I'm making a flamenco guitar. Otherwise, I really like the final saddle to be between 10 and 12, but I really like 11 is a great number. I actually like 11 more than 12 once the whole thing settles in, but I like room to go down, so I'm always shooting for 12 here. And so did Robert Ruck, and he built well over 1,000 guitars. Okay, Bob checking out, and I hope you all have a great day. Take care.